testing us or feeling us out in some way? Because this thing did not seem to be that successful. Not trying to disclaim the lives that were hurt by this. Certainly that was terrible, but this could have been way worse.
Yeah, I think when ISIS has to rely on people that they radicalize, this man made at least 2 trips. At least one of those trips was 11 months to clearly areas where he could have been radicalized in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Their quality control is not as high as it is if they were controlling every single person that they recruited and trained. So he could have just not been very good at what he was doing. And he could have been acting first on his own, but simply under inspiration. But either way, the point is ISIS appears to win to a lot of people, and that's what our war effort has to be about.
But he was able to plant those bombs, and now we're learning that there are failures. The U.S. government mistakenly granted citizenship to more than 800 immigrants from countries of concern to national security. So the Department of Homeland Security is reporting that the fingerprints of as many as 315,000 immigrants with final deportation orders, they had the final orders, they're missing from federal databases, causing this mix-up. What do you think needs to be done to have better screen people coming into this country?
I think the biggest problem is the giant bureaucracy of the Homeland Security situation. It was put together in a hurry, obviously, and I applaud the fact that it was put together. But when you put something together in a hurry and it's a huge government bureaucracy, you have to be attuned to the fact that it's got to have refinements, it's got to be reformed, and when the Congress and the President don't get along, that's a big part of it. But secondly, and this is more important, and that is greater scrutiny, and stop worrying so much about offending people and do more about law enforcement. Those guys that do law enforcement and screen and everything else should be completely worry-free when it comes to charges of discrimination or racism. They're simply looking at human beings who are or are not capable of doing terrorist acts, and let the facts follow. No more Fort Hood explanations of things, in other words.
But, Paul, we've been waiting since 9/11, this is Dagan McDowell, for these visa loopholes to be closed, to track people coming into this country and then leaving. We're still, I believe, 2 years out for this kind of entry and exit tracking, even at our nation's airports. Some of the 9/11 hijackers overstayed their visas. 500,000 tourists last year did that very thing in this country. Give the American people an explanation for why that has taken so long, because it's quite frankly disgraceful.
I think 2 presidents in a row have been very anxious about not appearing to be anti-Muslim or to be racial profiling. That's been a big problem, and I think the next president is going to have to solve that problem. Congress probably will have to be bolder about it. You're right, it's taken far too long, and I don't know any other explanation than bureaucratic snags, which are simply a function of a big government, but also people worried about being labeled discriminatory.
Paul, good morning. This is Morgan. We just had Governor Richardson on, and we were talking about Hillary Clinton's policy in Syria and Iraq, where she said unequivocally that she's not going to bring more troops in. Governor Richardson seemed to suggest that a no-fly zone might be a way to defeat ISIS, which I personally think is not accurate. Can you give us your thought about the Trump and Hillary plans for Syria and Iraq and how to defeat ISIS?
Well, on the one hand, you have someone with experience who has had a lot of mistakes, who has created a lot of problems, who was either there for the mistakes and problems of Barack Obama and didn't speak out, Hillary Clinton, or had her own problems like Libya. On the other hand, Donald Trump has 0 experience. So you're going on how he makes people feel when he talks about the plans that he will have and the toughness he projects. At the end of the day, much of what happened in Syria was lost because Barack Obama drew red lines and didn't enforce them. So the next president, it doesn't matter so much the specific plans, is does the world believe that president will actually do what it takes, including even things the American people may say right now they don't want to do, whether that's ground troops, whether that's greater alliances with the Kurds. Something will have to be done that proves that they're going to do more, because in both instances they don't have a lot of credibility, these candidates.
Yes, that's a good point. And then there's George Soros, op-ed from George Soros in the Journal today. He is saying in this opinion piece that he will invest $500 million of his own money to meet the needs of migrants and refugees. The investment is coming in response to the Obama administration's, quote, call to action initiative, asking U.S. companies to help ease the migrant crisis. Is it our responsibility to support these migrants? What's your view on this?
I don't think you can make an argument the American taxpayer is responsible for these migrants. You can make a national security argument if necessary, and George Soros' money would be well spent if he wants to give it to help set up refugee camps that are safer and better for those people in the region, and stop trying to send them into Europe or the United States, where it's only going to create more problems and resistance from the populations in those countries.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's investing all this money in migrants. Guys, we have to talk about the Skittles controversy. Donald Trump Jr. sparking outrage on social media yesterday, apparently, when he tweeted a picture of a bowl of Skittles and compared it to candy to Syrian refugees. So he writes, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 of them would kill you, would you take a handful? This image says it all. Let's end the politically correct agenda that doesn't put America first. Paul, do you agree with Trump Jr.'s analogy?
I don't think I would have gone to candy to make that analysis, but I would continue to do what his father's campaign has done, which is to point out that our government cannot admit millions of people or even hundreds of thousands without knowing and know that there's going to be a problem or not. And that was just proved over the weekend as we talked about all the people who are police officers and airport security people who weren't supposed to be here and were supposed to be deported.
Look, I got to get the panel's take on this because, frankly, this is not a new thing. We've heard this from a lot of people on this panel. I think Giuliani has said it. I think Lindsey Graham has said it. They've all made this analogy of Skittles. I mean, it's... But when I saw it, I thought...
The reason why they're saying is it actually works in a small setting. So I was with Donald Trump Jr. in Pittsburgh last week. We had 15 different meetings. He used it, and it resonated with them. I think the problem is when it's on social media, and the other side is going to take it and try to, like, dehumanize him from it.
Well,
that's sort of the silliness of it. They have nothing else to argue about. They got to argue about his Skittles and Donald Trump's temperament because their policies are terrible.
You have to think about it, I think, before you tweet it, because it gives the other side an opportunity to change the conversation.
That's exactly right.
It's questionable enough that it's ripe for criticism. That's the only reason. Not inaccurate.
But it does resonate in a small group, though, Dagan. Yeah. And I saw how effective it was last week.
While I agree with you, though, Dagan, I do think that people are so sick of the politically correct nature, then it's just such a small thing. And when they feel like you're going after the Trumps or every little thing, it's what lends people to say, you know, I'm just so sick of this.
Those are people who already support him. I'm talking about people who are still right in the middle, and the other side can take a hold of this and use it to their advantage by changing the conversation.
By the way, Donald Trump Jr. is a terrific guy. If I had a son like him, I would be super proud. Okay, this kid is a very hard worker, and he's a no-nonsense sort of person. He's got no silver spoon anywhere.
Paul, you got the final word here. What do you think about the Skittles reference?
I think Dagan's right that you give people a reason to criticize what you're saying. If he would just been very specific about a couple of cases, it would have resonated. Just like with the first comments he ever made about Mexican rapists, if he had just pointed out a few real crimes that were in the papers, it would have been a lot less easy for people to attack him.
Right. All right, Paul, great insights from you. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.